and welcome to another video. Now, those of you that subscribe to the channel will know that I was lucky enough to go to the French Open this year to watch Rafael Nadal play on Philippe Chatrier. Rafa is the king of clay, and for me, one of the greatest tennis players of all time. To be able to watch him play on his favourite court, which might be in his last French Open, from front row seats on Philippe Chatrier, was a dream come true. I actually made a vlog on this trip, I'll put the link above here, and lots of you in the comments below asked what it was like to see Rafa playing in the flesh. So in today's video, I'm going to share with you some of the key things that I noticed when watching Rafa play in the flesh, which you don't get to see when watching him on television. Let's check it out. Welcome back. Now, the great thing about this match was Rafael Nadal was playing against Corentin Moutet in the second round of the French Open. Now, Corentin is a French player, and being at the French Open, the crowd was going to be really electric for this match. The first thing that I noticed when the players walked onto court was the huge cheer that Rafael Nadal got. Now, of course, Corentin got a huge cheer as well, as the crowd were French, but you could really see how much Rafa is loved at the French Open for obvious reasons. This was carried on throughout the match. Rafa had huge support from the crowd, even though he was playing against a French player, which undoubtedly helps to carry Rafa through his matches at the French Open. However, I don't necessarily think he needs that, and here are a few reasons why. Before the match even got started, you can see the focus in his eyes. He popped his bag down onto the court, did his normal routine. What was really interesting was a ball kid brought on a food container of some kind. I actually posted a video of this over on Instagram and it got over 7 million views. People are really interested to find out what's in the box, so I'd be interested to find out what you think is in there. Was it sawdust for his hands, as he's known to use this when it's super humid and his hands get sweaty? Was it dates? Was it lunch from earlier? Who knows? So let me know what you think in the comments below. Anyway, the reason I'm talking about Rafa going through his normal routine is that it helps to set his mind into the right place, ready for battle. What really struck me was Rafa's intensity during the coin toss. When James Kiyotavong got down off his chair to do the coin toss, Corentin Moutet came up to the net with the two mascots. Rafa stepped right back onto the service line and was bouncing in his usual fashion. For Corentin Moutet, this has got to be pretty intimidating. Before the match has even started, Rafa is on his toes with high energy. His eyes were looking straight at Corentin, ready for battle. As soon as the coin toss was finished and the decisions were made, Rafa sprinted back to the baseline like he normally does, bounding to the back of the court, living up to his nickname El Toro, or the Bull. And already, if you didn't know the two players on court and you'd seen the warm-up and the coin toss, your money would be on Rafa. During Rafa's warm-up, he looked super relaxed. His forehands and backhands were nice and loose, and this is for a couple of reasons. One, he's super comfortable playing on Philippe Chatrier, which most players aren't. Most players haven't had the opportunity to play on centre court at any of the Grand Slams. Rafa has, so he's in his element, whereas his opponent would be feeling slightly more tight at the other end. Once the match got underway, I really enjoyed watching Corentin Moutet play. He had really good hands and great variety. He loved to hit drop shots and was pretty athletic around the court. This was promising to be a great match. Corentin matched Rafa for effort. However, when seeing the ball travel from end to end, you could see a clear difference in the weight of Rafa's shot. Now, you can see this and hear this when you're watching it on television. However, seeing it in the flesh, it's quite incredible. Not just the speed of the ball, but the way that that ball sounds when it hits the racket. I'm surprised the felt doesn't get ripped off the ball. And you can see the impact of this weight when the ball lands. Rafa doesn't even need to hit the ball deep for it to be effective. But in this match, he was hitting it deeper than Corentin was able to. Corentin was hitting his shots around the service line, and although he was hitting them with quite a lot of topspin, it was in Rafa's comfort zone. Rafa returned the shots with even more spin, but his shots were landing at around 3/4 of the length of the court, meaning that Corentin was having to receive the ball meters behind the baseline. Now, with the amount of spin that Rafa hits, he doesn't need his shots to go any deeper than 3/4. In fact, he could get away with hitting it around the service line, which he often does, and still push his opponent back behind the baseline. This is why Rafa is able to win those long rallies. He plays with such huge margin for error. The height of his shots as they crossed the net were around 3 net heights, which is bigger than most tennis players. So he barely ever hits the net. And because he has so much spin, hitting around service line to 3/4 of the court, he's never hitting the ball long. The only time he really misses is when he hits the frame, which he can do now and again with the extreme topspin that he's hitting, but it doesn't happen very often. Because Corentin was under so much relentless pressure on every single ball, he'd have to go for more risky shots than he normally would, and this is why he started to make a few unforced errors. I imagine if Corentin was playing somebody that was putting him under less pressure, he'd be able to use more of the variety within his game. Another thing that I was really amazed at with Rafa's tennis is how well he played when it got tight. Anytime it was deuce or ad, Rafa seemed to step it up a notch and was able to finish off those games. Now, the crowd could have played a small part in this, as anytime it got tight and Rafa won the point, the crowd roared. However, I think it's more down to Rafa's fighting mentality. He's been in these big situations hundreds of times, so has super experience in this area. However, other players haven't had the luxury of being in that situation as much as he has. So a question I get asked by lots of players is, how can I play better on big points? Or how can I avoid choking under pressure? And the real key is to put yourself in those situations more often. There's no better way of learning how to deal with things than experiencing them more often. The final thing that you don't really notice on television is the amount of focus that Rafa has during the match from start to finish. And when I say start, I mean as soon as he steps on that court. His opponent Corentin was often looking back at his coaches or looking into the crowd and venting, which lots of players do. This is one thing that you very rarely see Rafa do. He will only really look up at his box after a big point if he's won it, but very rarely will he do it after a loss. Even in this year's final when Rafa beat Casper Ruud, during the change of ends I was watching Casper and he was often looking around at the crowd and what was going on outside of the court. Whereas Rafa was purely focused on what was within his control, which was playing the next ball in front of him. At the change of ends, Rafa would go through his normal routine of moving his drinks bottles, pointing them in the right direction, and I know that lots of people don't like this, but what this does is it switches Rafa off from the outside world, allowing him to focus and go through his own routines. The same could be said for his serve routine. Again, this is something that lots of people dislike, but it's what allows Rafa to get his head into the right space. So they were some of the things that I noticed when seeing Rafa play in the flesh, but I'd be really interested to hear what you think about Rafa's game and if you've seen him in a live situation. Let me know in the comments below. As always, huge thank you for watching this video, especially if you're still tuned in, and I look forward to seeing you in next week's video. Take care.